to know where you live.
I live in Weston-super-Mare.
Have you always lived in Weston?
No.
Where did you live before?
Since my adult life, I've lived in
Grown up life.
Grown up life. When I was 12, we moved to Weston from South London.
Oh, right. Where in South London were you?
Well, South London catchment, let's call it, but it's by Croydon. Sutton, do you know
Oh, yeah,
it?
I know Sutton.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How do you know Sutton?
Well, I lived in New Malden.
Okay.
And went to school in Wimbledon.
Oh, wow.
And lived in a lot of South London. So my grandparents lived in Streatham.
Yes.
And then my mother-in-law from my first marriage lived in Mitcham.
Oh, wow.
So Sutton was the place where you went to shop.
I used to go to Wimbledon Market as well, by the old dog track.
Yeah.
They got rid of that before I ended up in, I think. They knocked it down.
Oh, really?
Is that right?
It did, but because it wasn't that far. The dog track wasn't that far from football stadium, was it?
No.
And then what happened to
they wanted to take it on the dog track stadium, but then the football team folded, didn't they?
I was going to say, did it fold or did they just move it?
Moved it, but if you ask the locals and the purist Wimbledon fans, it folded. They didn't follow their, following to Kings. It wasn't the same team as far as that.
Well, you lose your ground. You lose it.
That's why they started AFC Wimbledon. You know AFC Wimbledon?
No, where's that based?
The locals and the original fans started their own team called AFC Wimbledon, which worked its way up the pyramid of football and is now in League One, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, which is Premiership, Championship, League One. And they started up from below Weston-super-Mare sort of stuff.
I love how you go Premiership, Championship. Because it's almost like I'm not going to know.
That's me being sexist.
It is.
To be fair, I wouldn't have a clue either.
Chauvinist in me.
Direct that one to Michael because I know, okay?
Premiership, yeah, there you go. The football hierarchy, tends to be. I'm
amazed by that. I thought it was really sad when they took it away.
Very sad because they were great.
It was a brilliant team and it was a real community team as well. Yeah.
Sort of stuff. Good stuff.
Really.
From the 90s. They were a competitive team. Mm-hmm.
So what year did you move to Weston-super-Mare?
2001.
Okay.
So, yeah.
It's a very similar time to when I moved to Weston, actually.
Was it?
Yeah.
Where did you move from?
Slimbridge in Gloucester.
Did you? Do you know, I didn't know that about you. Gosh, and I know a lot about you, and I didn't know that.
Yeah. 2000. I can't remember, it was 2000, 2001 now. I think it was 2001. Yeah.
And how old were you?
I was 9.
And you were 12?
I was 12.
They're significant times, though, to change, to move, because 12 is probably worse than 9. But, psychologically and spiritually, your legs are so long, aren't you?
Yeah, and they're fidgeting around.
Yeah, that's all that bloody coffee.
Yeah,
I've just sworn again, sorry. He keeps telling me off to swear.
Adult show.
I keep telling Angie that if she keeps swearing, we're going to have to become an adult show.
In a box.
We'll have to be explicit.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you should say that. At the rehab, when I stopped, that we find each other £1 and put it in a charity box.
Okay.
And when I stopped working in the office most of the time, the amount of money that was in the box was reduced by 3/4 because my language is awful and I know it.
These days you wouldn't be able to because cash is on the decline, isn't it? So you'd have to, the equivalent would be like a Monzo or a Starling, put it in the box.
We've got to sum up, haven't we?
Yeah, sum up machine.
I don't think cash should go. I think it's a really important part of our
it's important. Psychologically.
Heritage as well. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, isn't it? It's
just part of everyday society.
It's heritage.
Really.
It's our heritage as well, isn't it?
Heritage. I think I would be resistant to going down a rabbit hole of conspiratorial ideas that I sometimes look at and consider. But I do think cash is and the decline of it in our society can serve a certain purpose of globalization, things like that, whether you think for the better or the worse. But I think psychologically it's good to hold cash as far as knowing what money really is, and feeling like it isn't just expendable.
Like that. Your children, if
time.
you're educating your children by a card, they don't see the value. You pay somebody by cash, they think, right, I've got this amount for this and this amount for this, and this. Budgeting is a lot easier when you've got cash than it is when you
see it.
It's exactly
Some
that's it. It's visual. You can see it.
Some people are visual than they are.
What I quite like is some of these modern banks. You mentioned Monzo and Starling. Is their apps are very visual. I love going on holiday because I like going on holiday, but I love going on holiday because I use a Monzo card whenever I'm away.
Just change that, by the way.
Oh, have they?
Be careful. Yeah, they've moved towards the high street things. £2.99.
Is it really?
So be careful. Yeah.
Okay.
Starling seemed to be one of the
that's
outliers.
Interesting. Well, I've been using Monzo for the past, I don't know, I was one of their founding members, so a long time ago. And I always use it. And I love it because you tap it when you're abroad and you wait about 3 seconds and you look at your Apple Watch or your phone or whatever and it goes ping and it tells you exactly what you just spent. And it's great.
In your currency.
Your currency. Yeah.
So good.
I love it. And I think, for people that are bringing up their children now with money, it's because it is all on a card. I think the importance of those apps is just grown massively.
Yeah. When I go out with the grandkids, because my kids are all grown up, but when I go out with the grandkids, I'll always take cash with me. Dave always takes, I think he takes like £300 or £500 a month out of his account every month.
And that's his spending for the month.
That's so if we need cash for anything, we've always got it. But also, if we go to the shops with the grandchildren, we'll give them the cash. They hand it over to the lady at the shop or the man at the shop or whoever it is, and he gives them that cash. And then they've got that perception of what it is. You're exchanging that for your goods. And I just think it's really important to do. And it's good communication skills instead of going, like, I tell you off about your phone, don't I? Like, if you're on your phone and it's like, people get it cut.
Always on his phone.
I know.
I call him, he answers before it's done. He goes, all right, mate. So I said to him the other day, I said, you were just scrolling your phone, weren't you? He goes, yeah, I always.
But I think
keeping an eye on
it does close you off from the world, doesn't it? And it's a bit like you go to the shop, you buy whatever you're buying, and you just go like that. There's no communication, is there?
No, exactly. No, there isn't.
When rise of let's call it the smartphone age, social media correlation with that, there was an idea, if you cast your minds back, that its outset was you're going to become more connected with the world. And the way it was positioned was, and I agreed at the time, it was people from who you went to school with, people from your childhood, you can now connect. And that was brilliant, right? Because it was like the lads down the street who I used to play with when before I moved to here, all of a sudden I had them on my social media. And it was really nice catching up. So there was that connection aspect, which was promoted and was true. But as time unfolds, you have to be careful of a slippery slope where disconnection is arguably becoming more prevalent. Disconnection with the people you're in front of. Yeah. Disconnection with reality. Yeah. Reality being your normal reference points, how we perceive things. All of a sudden, you're referencing it against, I don't know, a keeping up with the Joneses mentality, referencing you should concentrate on yourself and things like that. So this is where a lot of problems come in. Subject.
I agree. I always have this thought, and probably, I don't know, once a month, I reckon. I think I've mentioned it to you a few times, that, what's the point of posting what I'm doing on Instagram? What's the point? Who benefits from that? And, there's weeks that go by where someone will like it and people go, oh yeah, that looks good. And then you get the odd person who goes, well, why did you do it that way? Or how did you do it that way? And I think, well, actually, they're the valuable bits. They're the bits where someone seeks some value out of what you've done. And I find that really interesting. But there are times where I think, well, what is the point?
I hear what you're saying. And I am very new to social media. And like the reason I know about sport is because I've got a husband who is like literally the worst thing I ever did was download BBC Sports on his damn phone. Because if I have to take his phone away from him, I don't. Obviously, I don't. He's an adult, but I will take the mickey out of him, because for goodness sake, Dave, get off your bloody phone. Because he used to say that to me, and get off your phone. And I work really hard not to be on my phone. But coming back to that bit about knowledge and experience, and we were talking about the people giving you feedback, and like I always post about the podcast on social media, on my WhatsApp. I send it to everybody in my WhatsApp, and I also send it to email. I email it to some people that don't do WhatsApp or other social media. And the feedback that you got, like I was saying to Mike, it's the best thing. This is the highlight of my week. I love hearing your voice. It makes me feel like I'm back at home. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I think it has a place, but it's the reality of the world, isn't it? The fact is, somebody says to me, I've got loads and loads of friends. They're all online.
It's a cultural thing, right? So the longer things go on, you have blessed to have grown up in a time where you've experienced both.
Yes.
Yeah? Same as me and Mike, just about. Next generation lot down is going to have not so much of a knowledge of life without a phone, unless their guidance is to literally segregate their time, have a time for your phone. But where it's on your hip, in your pocket all the time, whatever you want, you can reach out and get it, right? And that is good from a utility point of view. Efficiency, great. But in terms of working for something and experiencing the real world and your own considerations, it's kind of like a circuit breaker. It stops that straight away.
Yeah.
So we're going to be efficient because our phone is becoming part of us, and the phone is capable. But reliance is a slippery slope.
Yeah.
It's a slippery slope. That's my personal.
And the dynamics of that is, as like you were implying, is it breaks down this.
It does.
Breaks down this if you don't focus on the fact that this is as, if not more important than your attachment to this electronic thing that is going to keep you in touch with what's going on in the wider community. But actually you forget your own individual community, which is your family, your friends, your work colleagues, whoever
which
it is.
Like a staple of human needs. You need that community.
Completely. And without that, where do you go for support? If you don't build those relationships, you've got nowhere to go for support, which impacts on people's mental health massively. Like
hugely.
A 12-year-old that gets pushed to Weston-super-Mare from where you live, from South London. I remember I moved here when I was 13. I'm lying. I moved here to Somerset when I was 15.
Okay.
I moved to London when I was 13.
Yeah.
And I moved here and it was such a shock.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you
better have some people skills.
Oh.
Like if that you find yourself in those positions. And I hope I'm incorrect in my concerns, but I think you can be relying on your people skills, rapport building, comfort building. If you had all that through text, or predominantly through text, because you're cut off from the world, making it sound worse than it really is, but there'll certainly be a percentile where this is true.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And the thing is, it's short, sharp sentences, isn't it? It's it is one-liners or a couple of words.
So many times where I've sent a message or someone sent a message to me, and the tone of that message is very different if they'd phoned me from what I've read, and vice versa. That's happened so many times, and I imagine it's probably happened to you guys where you've sent something and it's been interpreted in such a different way. Yeah.
Well, you will say to me, I don't know what you're talking about. Let's talk about it when we get together.
Yeah, I do.
Go, you do it a lot because, and I don't know whether that's the age gap, because I might not speak. We do when we sit down with each other, but on text, and he hasn't got a clue what I'm talking about. And I think I'm speaking beautifully, but actually he hasn't got a clue.
A great tip for people from my own experience and through trial and error, let's say. Avoid humour over text.
Okay.
Avoid it, because sarcasm doesn't filter through, irony doesn't come through. It might to one person, but to the next person it won't. So if you just avoid it altogether, yes, you'll become a dry texter, but you'll save on that. I think anyway. That's
It's
my
a good
advice
tip.
to
I
listeners.
quite like that. That's interesting.
The thing I like
Maybe.
about texting is like, for example, somebody's just texted me and said, I've been given your number by somebody else. She said that, and actually, can we get together? Yes, we can. I'm free on Tuesday. Are you free? That's fine. What time suits you? She sends me a time. Appointment sorted. We're going to catch up.
Yeah.
That's what I like about.
Yeah, and you can be doing that whilst doing.
I'm doing that while I'm making you a cup of coffee.
Exactly.
If you see what I'm saying. And it doesn't take up. I can't be rude and say, look, I'm really sorry, but I've got somebody waiting for me. I've got to go. It feels a bit rude to do that, especially somebody you don't really know. But does that make sense?
Certainly.
I'm not that kind of person. I like relationships with people. So for me, that suits me fine. I love that a bit about it, but I don't like the other bits.
No, that's very true.
Of course, it's got you to leave. It wouldn't be the big thing that we're making it to be.
No,
Yeah.
that's also very true.
But like you say, it's conducive to a potential negative aspect in humanity. So I think that is going to have to be addressed and dealt with, actually, rather than hope and burying.
I think people will do it, just like everything. I think a society will do something about that. I think eventually that it will. And I think just by doing things like this kind of highlights people going, yeah, actually, do you know what? I am on my phone for too much, or that, oh yeah, I could think about that. I think we're educating ourselves just by communicating about
and
it.
unfortunately, things will need to get to a certain severity before things get addressed on a societal level. And we do it as humans. That's why it has to get to a certain level of inconvenience, doesn't it, before we address some things. Unless you're very, got your stuff together and you're running a very tight ship, which a lot of the time we're too distracted to do. But I think in society it will have to get to a certain severity before it will get looked at.
Change. Well, we had somebody that was coming into rehab, and they turned up. The local authority paid for them to get there.
Okay.
This takes weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks to get to rehab. They had a detox, so that's thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds. Thousands of pounds of input from both ourselves, the organisation, blah, 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 blah. And this person arrived, and they knew this. It was told to them in assessment, and we'll put your phone away for safekeeping. Got up and left.
Yeah.
Before, it didn't even do. There was no negotiations. You have your phone once a week. This is about being able to not be distracted, being able to focus on you for the first time in your life. You've got X amount of weeks just to focus on you, not every Tom, Dick and Harry that's on the end of your social media. And they do iPads every night. They can do whatever, but actually, no, we don't like them around the house.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, on a deep level, if I'm okay to sort of go there, on a deep level, that distraction is what's hiding you from addressing certain issues. So you guys, with the charity you run and background that you have professionally and what have you, that's when things are very bad, the extreme polarization of that. However, we all have to deal with our mental well-being. Everybody, it's something where you can be in denial or you can look at it how it really is. We all try to distract ourselves into different severities, and the phone is the perfect fodder to do that with. And you can only really process emotions when you let yourself do that, right? And that's without distraction. Is it comfortable? No, but we do need to process our experience.
Have you done that yourself? Is that something that you've had to do?
Stuff I work on. Yeah, it's stuff I work on. I've got a therapist. I see a therapist, and it's not reactive. You could argue it's reactive. Past relationship I had was a relationship's very fertile ground for introspection. Yeah, because the other person is, in many respects, your mirror. You'll see what's rubbing them up the wrong way, things like that. But then afterwards, you kind of think, okay, there are areas where you can improve. There always are. So that's my personal reality and why I see a therapist.
Yeah.
I I'm fine with that. I'll tell anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, what comes up is the tendency and the allure of distraction and connection with yourself, which means not distracting yourself all the time. It's at the specific level. You can all be guilty of following a certain path and not appreciating what's going on.
Yeah.
So we do it with the good, right? In a kind of, you skirt over the successes, skirt over the positives, and then with the very negatives, we can think they're bad, but not really come to consciousness about them. We exist. What my therapist will say is, you're over here at a high level of abstraction. You have to sort of come back down to the specifics and really process it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have known. It helps, but I wouldn't have known that narration on what's going on without counselling or therapy. So yeah.
Well, the thing is it comes back to like that bit about what's popular. If you lived in America and you didn't have a therapist, you'd be weird. If you live in England and you've got a therapist, you're weird.
We're very
Do you know what I'm saying?
school,
Yeah.
like that.
And sadly that's it. But I completely concur with what you're saying is, unless you take the time and you're not distracted by your phone, your laptop, the TV, whatever, then your development, your personal development,
You're kicking a can down the road.
Yeah, exactly. You're not moving through it. And I think also what therapy does is it teaches you for 50 minutes of, you can do that for 50 minutes. So why can't you do it for 10 minutes every day? Why can't you do it for 20 minutes every day? So, I meditate every morning. That's my day. I start meditating way before anybody's even awake in my house, before the birds start tweeting, because I need that time to, just work out where I'm at,
Show
what's
up
going
for
on.
yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Prioritizing yourself.
Yeah.
Setting your intentions to be
for the day. Yeah, and who I want to be.
Exactly.
And that's the difference between when you've got a phone in front of you or a laptop, you can't do that because all you're thinking about is that.
Yes, definitely. And not to put words in your mouth, and you can tell me if it's true, but where you've the benefits you have from your meditation, do you find a certain moment of overwhelm or hysteria in any given day? You kind of get to have that moment of bringing yourself back to
Definitely.
equanimity,
Yeah.
which is easier and more crisp because you meditate and you
Definitely. And I think, I had an incident this morning. We've got a couple of puppies that don't belong to us that we've been looking after, and somebody did something completely what they shouldn't have done. And where I live, as you know, is on a main road, and it's quite busy road. It's a 60-mile-an-hour road. Okay, I live in the country, but it's still a 60-mile-an-hour road. And one of those dogs go out on the road and they get killed. That I don't want to live with that. And I raised my voice because I had to raise my voice, and then I have to reflect on, was that the right thing to do? Did I? Yes, it was, because it stopped this puppy from running out on the road because he was going to run out on the road. But it was like, I don't want to be doing that.
No.
That is not me. I don't do that. I don't raise my voice. It doesn't, it's just, I'm just not that kind of person.
Yes. No. Yeah, I get where you're coming from with that. It's not how you want to show up.
Yeah.
You've got a certain level of certain way you want to.
Yeah,
in the world,
for sure.
And that's true to you.
Yeah. So, you said you were in a relationship. Have you got a new relationship? Just being nosy.
1 year and 1 month single. So,
really?
Yeah, flies by.
Intentionally
time
single, or did you make a choice?
Yeah. Okay. Right. Have I been on dates? Of course I have, but intentionally single in that. I'm guilty of. I mentioned introspection and stuff. It becomes a thing when I've been single in my life, and I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I enjoy improving. I enjoy improving a lot of variables, and emotionally, spiritually is one of them, one of the biggest. So, setting myself that actual intention to be introspective is my way of measuring it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And it's but when I said I'm guilty of it, the reason I word it like that is because I think it's easy to stop doing it when you're in a relationship because you've got someone else to sort of be there for you in a way. And no, it's still important to carry on and keep that. For me, it is anyway, and I suspect it's beneficial, or probably advisable for many people to carry on.
Completely agree with you.
That.
Have you ever done that? Said, I'm having a year, no relationship.
Frequently, actually, mainly because of I want to achieve a goal.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I want to achieve something or do something, and I can't have too many distractions. And I think there's a lot of people out there that do that. To be fair,
I did it. Well, I remember when I came out of rehab and made a mistake very quickly, and then thought, no, I'm not doing this. And I had a complete year, if not a bit longer, on my own. No relationship, nobody, and I actually really resisted from talking to men, in fact, because
you can help yourself.
Well, yeah, there was part of that, but the other side of it is I was young, I wasn't ugly anyway.
You had options.
Exactly. I had options. That's a good way of looking at it.
One of the choosers.
I had options to choose, and I just thought, no, that's it. Because actually, when I used to go to I do go to meetings, but when I used to go to certain meetings, AA or NA or whatever around at the time, there was always some predatory male around, whatever, that was interested in. It wouldn't have mattered who I was. Do you know what I'm saying? And I just made a rule to myself that I'm not having anything to do with men as such, other than those are like my stepfather or whoever it was in my life. And it's the best thing ever. Like you said, it gave me that time just to be me. Okay, I had 2 children, so I didn't have as much time as I would have liked, but fundamentally, it was wonderful to just be on my. And today, I actually like my own company.
Good.
I think before
you have to.
But I think I agree with you. But if you don't have time on your own, do you feel that you don't get that perspective because you don't damn well know?
Yes.
Yeah, I would agree. I really enjoy my own company. It's almost my downtime, I suppose. It's that whole, especially when you're in your life is full of talking to people or interacting with people. Actually, to be able to come home, shut the door, and just not talk to anybody is like bliss.
Yeah,
getting into the realms of codependency with regards to what you've mentioned there, and obviously that's it's a non-starter. It's the codependency phenomenon, let's call it, is an issue. So something you have to be careful of. And it's a horrible prospect, thinking I'm going to have to go through some hard times to get to know myself and be okay with myself. But it's a path. I would go all the way to say it's a path that must be travelled.
Yeah.
I know that's can be controversial in some respects because of course you've got success stories, people who find their first love in school and are there with them the whole time, who knows how they don't need to know how to cope in the real world on their own because they've
never had to.
They've never had to, fine, but for the majority, and they're a very lucky few. But also, I personally feel lucky that I get to explore the whole rainbow of emotion and growth.
Yeah,
I think I would, if I had the choice, I would choose my life over one where I met my penguin, as they say in school, and just stayed with her. That's just me. But codependency is one I think you have to be careful of, especially when there's a big, wide world out there of challenges and stuff where the void is out of your control.
But it comes back to, once again, isn't it? Is having the relationship with social media, and that there's a level of codependency there, isn't there? There's a level of codependency on making sure that you can do your emails at a certain time. You could add that to everything. Codependency isn't just about the relationships with somebody. It's exactly, and that touches on realms of addiction and various other bits and pieces. But it is that bit about not being able to function without, not being a whole person without that certain situation. And I think a lot of young people probably feel like that about social media. feel like that about, if my daughter-in-law and son have just given our eldest grandchild, who's 10, a mobile phone. Okay. Now, the reason they're giving it,
divided people a lot. This subject.
Definitely, because the reason they did it was because he was going to the shop, which is down the road from their house, with his friend on his bike. He parked his bike outside the shop like you'd expect to be able to do. Came out of the shop and his bike wasn't. So he's 10 years old and he's got to deal with that emotion about where's his bike. And fortunately, his friend had a phone. So his friend phoned his dad and said, this is what's happened. And his son and his wife went down and picked him up and coached him. And he was worried because it was a really expensive bike and, all of those emotions that go with it. So their decision about buying him a phone and giving him a phone with credit that he could actually communicate with people was for that purpose. And bless him, he sent us a WhatsApp, hi granny, hi granddad, that's really sweet. And it was lovely to get it. But he doesn't use it in the same way as a lot of young people because he's got other things that he wants to do.
Well, brilliant.
Fortunately.
That's a good scenario.
Yeah. He knows that it's there for emergencies.
Yeah. How old were you when you got your first phone?
Oh, blimey. Back when I've never been into my phones, really. If
You're
I'm
not?
honest. No, wait, what was the phones when it was in secondary school. It would have been one of them Nokia.
Yeah.
3310.
Yeah. Everybody knows the 3310.
3210 became the 33, before was preceded the 3310, but then 3310 and got the highest score on Snake. But smartphones, mate.
I'd love to play Snake.
And Snake 2, where you can do that sort of rubbish. But then smartphones came in and around when I think I'm going to turned about 20. When I turned 20, I remember I was doing deliveries for a local curry house at the time, and I couldn't believe how unbelievable it was that I could just go on my I got a sat nav now and all this sort of stuff. And
How old are you now?
34. Yeah.
How old are you, Mike? Can't remember.
Well, I'm 30, 31 in November.
Oh yeah, of course you were 30.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah. I don't think I got the only reason I got my first phone and I've ever had a phone is because my kids insisted I got a phone, and my husband, because I got assaulted and was in a very not very nice situation in the community. So they, I was at work, so it was kind of goes with the territory. Really shouldn't, but it did.
Yeah, and you're sort of at higher risk, aren't you? Just from the circumstance. Yeah.
And I was trapped in a house with some guy, and basically couldn't get out. And then they said, "You can't be doing this anymore." And I think I have got to have been over 40.
Really?
I was way on the edge. So I had a Nokia that I did not want to let go of. And everybody else had iPhones or whatever it was. Yeah. All the family did. And the only reason I got an iPhone was because I think William probably said, get a iPhone, mother. And it's like the only reason I got a laptop was because Dave would sit on this laptop, or his laptop was sat there doing nothing. And in the end, I thought it's going to be easier for me to use a laptop than it is for me to use a big computer. It's things that I'm so not
reluctant to sort of
because I don't want it to take over my life. Whereas you guys are completely, it's what you do. How old were you?
I think I was 10 as well.
So
it was about 10. I had my. I was thinking about this while you guys were chatting, that I couldn't live without my mobile phone not because I'm addicted to it, but because all of my businesses run on the phone.
On your phone, yeah.
I couldn't be here today if my computer, my work was in my office.
Exactly.
Whereas here, after you finish podcast recording, I can look at my phone and I can see what's been going on in the last couple of hours and stuff like that. And I think there's a lot of people have become reliant on their phones. I think probably about 5 years ago, there was a lot of organizations where people would have two phones. They have a personal phone and a work phone.
Yes, okay.
That is now reduced drastically. I was chatting to a friend the other day who's got two phones, and he was like, I'm fed up of carrying two phones around.
Yeah.
I'm going to speak to my boss about, whether I can just use the work phone as my personal phone.
Yeah.
And I think more and more of that's happening. But I think the knock-on effect of that is that people are going to be available for work
Yeah.
more if they're using their work device in their personal time, especially if you're on holiday. If you go on holiday from work and you've got your work phone with you, you can't. It's a lot harder to just ignore that call. I mean, I get it. If someone phones me and I can't take the call because I'm in a meeting or another call, I get a bit of anxiety about, well, that person's phoning me. I really need to talk to them.
Yeah.
So I don't know about
You
you
got to
guys.
set yourself some boundaries. And
Yeah, for sure.
Trust me, this is claiming to have mastered that. I experienced this as I'm self-employed, right? So knowing when to set the boundary of when am I at work or
When I'm not. Yeah.
And some people are fine with always being at work. My problem and my soft boundary here, which is work in progress, is it's subjective to the other person,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So when I go above and beyond the call of duty, I certain levels of urgency would be a service to my client to be working late into the evening. I would do it.
Yeah.
Right. And then this is the part that's hard and is my fault. I have to take ownership of the boundary that I'm looking to create and breaking. If they're ungrateful or they weren't aware that I'm actually going above and beyond here, then I might, and it's my fault because I've invited them past my boundary. Then I hold my hands up. I get a bit resentful, right? Not anything profound, but I think the opposite of gratitude, where it's almost like expectation. And if I hadn't have done X, Y, or Z, then there would have been words or what have you. That's when I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop doing that. Then a day might pass, and I think, no, I don't mind sometimes working because I like to be at service for my clients. But it's like, Ben, you can't control the world. You can't control how someone's going to perceive anything you do. So it's a work in progress, mate. So it's funny that you should bring that subject up. Holidays, evenings, weekends. Where do you draw the line?
The best thing I did, though, which is what you persuaded me to do, and Rob persuaded me to do, was to get a watch. Because so I've got an iPhone watch, which I don't put my phone on. My phone is on silent all the time. The only reason my phone would be off silent, and I don't actually put my phone on, I put my watch on now, is because if I'm expecting an important call and I need, because around here the signal's rubbish anyway. But other than that, I don't now. It's been the best thing for me. So if somebody's ringing me, even if it's work, now I can put a distance between me and work. And that's something that I have not been able to because of my position. I've always been on call. And actually, do you know what? I don't want to be on call. I've got managers, I've got deputy managers. I pay people to do that job. So jolly well get on and do it. And there's nothing that's going to come your way that you haven't resolved before. You can resolve it. And it's about trusting the team, but
100%.
also giving myself a break.
Yeah, it's giving you permission to do it. We're about 40 minutes in, and we've not really introduced Ben and what he does. And I feel like we touched on it a moment ago, but I think, Ben, introduce yourself and
what do you actually do?
What the hell am I? Who the hell am I? Right.
Well, he's a man that's in therapy. He's got really open. He's very open-minded. I know that. But what do you do for a living?
Thank you very much. I'll take that as a compliment. So I'm a mortgage broker, self-employed, like I've just touched on. But yes, so not sure when this will go out, but it's very much a topical subject. Mortgages, interest rates, and cost of living, and things like this. So I touched on it earlier. Levels of hysteria, urgency. So you'll have to forgive me if all these things are at the forefront of my mind right now. That's why they've come up in conversation. But yes, I'm a whole of market. Slap on the wrist. I don't know if you're not meant to use that term anymore, but essentially it's when you can pick from a certain pot of pool of lenders, and they're over a certain amount that you're used to be allowed to call it that. Who knows where compliance lies with that one now? And yeah, I work for myself and my clients.
And how long have you worked for yourself for?
4 years now.
Okay.
Literally 4 years ago, I left my factory job. So
that's not very. I expected you to be saying that you were.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
I was always ambitious, and it sort of took me till a checkpoint, which I reckon 30 was a big checkpoint in my life. Whether it was, you always dread turning 30, don't you? I mean, I can only speak for myself.
You
Yeah.
I did.
can't even remember my.
I hit 25, and I had one eye on being 30 from the whole time. And what it does do, it
I would
doesn't
say the same.
makes the time go so quick, and
Or it makes you realise that your life is going quickly.
it makes you realise that your life is going quickly. Yes,
Are you doing the same for 40?
Oh yeah. I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, I'm still not really over turning 30. And I was like, hang on, Ben, you turned 34 a few months ago. I was like,
You're halfway to 40.
I'm in my mid-30s. And it's like, okay, forget that. Back to trying to concentrate on the day. But yeah, no, it's a funny old industry.
Do you like it?
Yes, I do like it.
Have you had to do qualifications?
Yeah. So that was part of the transition from what I was doing. So when I was in a factory, I decided one day, look, I had enough of. I'm just going to apply myself to something.
Yeah.
I felt like I was always waiting for some big profound occurrence in my life, and it doesn't. You get it.
The revelation never arrived.
It took till 30 to realize, no, you've got to make it happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and it was just like pick something and go full hog into it. Luckily,
you like it.
It fulfills me, and I get stimulation from it. Is it a roller coaster? Yes, it is.
Especially at the moment.
Especially at the moment, mate.
Market's been.
But don't you think it's always like that, though?
Listen,
I think
I have this conversation all the time. The levels of hysteria are always there. Everyone always thinks this is the biggest time of panic. Is more palpable now because of what's going on in the world. But is all this stuff going on in the world? Russia, cost of living, inflation, things like this, interest rates, they're all interlinked. But all of this, is it more hysterical than when COVID first outbroke? I would say no if we zoom out. But the way people feel is right now.
Yes.
And it feels more panicky now. And they think, oh my God, it was like, what did you do during COVID-19? So you've got a whole myriad of people's emotions that they're wondering, do I pull out of buying this house? Do I stay purchasing it? Do I wait for the crash? Can I afford this? And they ask me. And I say, one thing I'm definitely not going to do, right, is predict the future, right? Because you'll come hunting me down, right?
You haven't got a crystal ball,
some people don't. I haven't got a crystal ball, believe it or not. And but one thing I do aim to do, and this is essentially my job, is put my clients in an informed place to make their own decisions. Something that I can hear during fact finds and conversations that I hear, I feel like they're not aware of, and we'll chat about. We want to make them aware of certain dynamics and every outcome we can think of.
But isn't that about so I feel that I'm a responsible practitioner in my field. Okay. And that's that bit about you being a responsible practitioner in your field, and like you being a responsible practitioner. So your job, sadly, is 24 hours a day because of the nature of what you do.
Yeah.
Similarly to mine, because actually, if the system breaks down, everybody's on the phone to you because you're the only person that we can speak to about it. So, and then you obviously pass it on. With yours, you can turn it off, can't you? You can go, actually, I'm not going to do any mortgage work today. But you've got that person that's desperate to buy their house, desperate to know if they can get the money, desperate. And it does make it hard to be the best all the time.
Of course. And it's a fallacy.
Bizarrely, I think Ben's industry is a bizarre one in the sense of the whole process takes a very long time.
Yeah.
The percentage that's down to the mortgage broker is probably about 1%. All the delays are caused by everything else. And
I'm scared to tell my other clients that. They might hear
send them
it
this
from
podcast and say, there we go.
Good, send them a link.
The one thing that I suspect you do feel is that, when you do get a request from a client or from a lender or wherever, you want to deal with it quickly because you don't want to be part of that hold up.
So Angie just touched it there. I can choose to.
Yeah.
I can, but I'm kicking a can down the road. If I choose not to do it at 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m. tonight, I have to deal with it in the morning.
Yes.
And then I have to be an octopus because at the moment, if at that lender I choose to go into the morning, if that lender then pulls that product that we're discussing and going for, I'm a huge villain in the morning.
Of course,
A
yeah.
huge villain. And there's even been talks of complaints from my colleagues, right? When I go to meet up for certain networking events, there's been complaints logged against other brokers where a product's been pulled and the next one available is over the term, because that's how we're meant to do it by true cost, unless asked by the client otherwise. It was about £3,500 more over the 5-year period that they wanted a fixed term over. £3,500. The client thought, "You've cost me that, Mr. Broker." So there's a huge grey area there, and one where the the barrel is loaded with with both barrels, and someone can pull the trigger on you, and who knows what the outcome will be. But it's so much pressure. There's so much arbitrary issues with.
But you know what? I look at that from a business perspective around what's the service level agreement, because all these lenders have service level agreements. We're going to respond within 30
Which
days.
Is their boundary, isn't it?
That's right. They're going to underwrite in however many days and so on. Well, they go over that all the time. We've had that.
Oh yeah.
So is it? Why is it a broker's fault that when they got that email at 5 p.m. and didn't deal with it by 6 p.m., why is it their fault that product's now in pool? Of course, it's not their fault. That's a silly way.
Managing expectation is a cliche and a buzzword, and it's so true that I get told to do all the time. Manage expectation.
It's been drilled into you, that word.
Into you. At the moment, it's almost impossible because things are so. So, what's going on in my industry right now? Can I say the date?
Yeah.
Well, we're in around October time, and with everything going on with interest rate hikes, you're looking at a product and 2 days later it's gone. And it's all down to the way the bank sees the coming immediate and medium term future. And that's how they're positioning themselves. So normally that's over the space of 3 or 4 weeks, whereas at the moment it's happening daily because they're changing their mind, and then you've got the budgets that are coming out and contradicting each other. There's talk of the central bank not being in alignment with the governments. All this sort of stuff banks listen to, and at the moment the hysteria we've mentioned is causing turbulence. So I'm a middleman. I'm there to give you the best deal you can get. I can find you. And at the moment, we're having to move quick.
Yeah.
So it's stressful times as it is.
And the thing, though, isn't it? Is like you're saying about being an octopus. I mean, I think we all have a level of accountability, whatever we do. But there's always somebody that's going to think you should give a bit more.
Yeah.
So I've had complaints made against me that will carry on for the rest of my career. As long as I'm in practice, somebody's going to complain because in their opinion, they think they're right and I'm wrong, whatever. And I don't profess to be right. I just profess that in the circumstances, I'm doing my best at that moment in time. Similarly to you. But how do you manage when you don't become an octopus at 8 o'clock in the morning? Or how do you manage when it's 7 o'clock at night and you know damn well that, or 6 o'clock or 5 to 6, and you know damn well that if you don't respond to this now, that they're going to lose. There's a high chance that they're going to lose it. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with a complaint? How do you deal with all of that?
Right. So on a technical level, you always back yourself up with that. Managing the expectation.
Yeah.
So
the boundaries.
Yeah, the boundaries. You always have to do that. Say, make a client aware of what could happen if certain things. But in terms of, if you're talking about as a human being, you have to, and I have to relinquish the expectation that I can please everybody, or I'm never going to upset someone, or everyone's always going to be happy with me. So long as I know I've done my very best, right, then it's a hell of a lot of an easier endeavor. So, and I think you can talk about me as a mortgage advisor, as self-employed, however you want to do it. I think that could be quite relevant to life in general, so long as you've done your best, right, and you've acted with integrity, let that be your guide, I suppose.
Yeah.
Let it be your guide when you know you haven't as well, because we're human beings. I know it sounds a bit profound for your question, but
No.
at the
I agree
moment, with all the stress, it's so relevant that I have had people that are upset with me. But like I said, I'm not an octopus, and
No, you're just doing your best. Which
exactly, Mike.
you're in times that, I mean, it's a bit like talking about the NHS. The NHS are doing their best.
Yeah.
The fact that waiting lists are as long as
But does that link beautifully back to how we kind of started this conversation in regards, or the podcast, in regards to expectations, that when you have your phone in front of you and you get an immediate response, and everything's immediate, you get an immediate feeling, you get immediate, everything's like that. It has that almost kind of, I don't know everybody expects it. The race is now starting to expect that, instead of thinking, you're human, you have a life, you can go out with your friend, you can go out and have dinner, you could be doing a podcast. Do you know what I'm saying? All of that.
We touched on this before about the fact that you can go on an app now and you can order your groceries to be delivered in 30 minutes. You can have them delivered tomorrow if you want to, which is fairly normal, but you can also get them in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think as a result, as a society, we have all come to expect things now. Not in a month's time or 6 months' time.
Yes.
I was chatting to somebody the other day about mortgages, funnily enough, and they were buying their first home this year, and they were, it was a brand new build, and they were expecting to be in within a month. And I just laughed at them and said, that's just not going to happen. And they said, oh, yeah, the house builder says it will happen in a month. I said, no, the house builder wants you to be on the hook.
Been sold to, mate.
Exactly. And I said, I reckon it'll probably take 12 weeks. And
that's still ambitious, but yeah.
It is, yeah. I said it's ambitious. He said, no, it's going to be a month. I said, no, I reckon 12 weeks. And anyway, 12 weeks came and went. And then another 12 weeks came and went. And they moved in about 3 weeks ago, I think.
Hate to say I told you so. I expect you to say.
I said that so many times. I told you so. I told you so.
Yeah.
But they failed to believe me.
But you have to manage expectations. Unless you're a salesman front end who isn't got, you can just get through closings.
Yeah.
Well,
then it's down to your moral compass.
Well, it's a bit like, for us, is it for the rehab, using that as an example. When I was first in practice, when we first opened as a rehab, we were always flexible about the length of time that people would come in. And it was like, they would either do 3 months up to 6 months. It wasn't 6 months, it was up to 6 months. They might stay on and do some aftercare and then go back home. That's the plan. But now you're lucky if you get 12 weeks. Well, how can you help somebody who's been an addict or an alcoholic or whatever you want to call people, had an eating disorder from the age of 7, to resolve all of their pain, etc., in 12 weeks? Well, it ain't going to happen. And it's almost like the community have also got that same attitude that, well, you can send a text in 2 seconds, so you can get them cured in 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, get in the real world.
And it's much more murky waters with that subject as well. Your mortgage, yes, it's huge. One of the biggest, if not the biggest, transactions you make as an adult human being. But in that subject, you're kind of putting a variable of you're giving another variable to someone's mental well-being, and what if they don't go through it in 12 weeks? And is that another stick to whack themselves around the head with?
I failed.
I'm worse than the average, but no, it's such more murky waters putting those kind of guidelines on your industry. So I don't envy you there. I mean, like I say, mortgages and stress, whatever you're in, when there's expectation, whether it's your boss at work or whether my clients are my boss, essentially, there's always pressure to perform.
So I want to ask.
How you looked at me when you said that?
Yeah,
because he's one of your customers.
Yes, he is.
So, how long did it take you to train?
I trained. I got my my CMAP level 1, 2, and 3 tied up within a year.
Well done.
And my whole existence outside my day job, I just let it consume me because it was giving me fulfillment. Yeah, so I knew I was onto something, changing my.
Did you kind of have, like, for me, when I worked like had a placement type thing. So did you do a placement with somebody that?
Yes.
Yeah. So you did that. So that was your way of making sure you were
tapering in.
Yeah. So you tapered into it. So what gave you the courage to go,
Hail Mary.
won't swear. I'm going to go and do it on my own.
Hail Mary, really. It was always the leap of faith and backing myself. And I still hit those crossroads in what I do now, right? Whether it's in my day job, I invest in property as well.
Yeah.
So the leap of faith aspect where you have to back yourself, I think to not have that as an expectation is like an unnecessary source of stifling yourself.
Yeah,
right?
I hear that.
Sometimes you have to take the leap of faith. So I went into it. I put some parts in place.
Yeah.
My version of that was, look, I had a house. I just thought, sell my house and get a flat. What's a flight of stairs, right? Reduce my mortgage, reduce my outgoings. I had a Mercedes. I got rid of that. Because it was like, what's £300 a month? Just, is it my ego? What am I keeping myself in the factory with these overheads? Let's just get rid of it because I've got more important direction now. And I've got a car like less than half the price per month. So I did put technical parts in place to make the leap of faith easier by reducing my outgoings. So there was that technical aspect, but still, was it precarious? Yeah,
of course it was.
It was. But then you realize you're not made of glass when you do those things. But before you do them, you can. So you can make it grow.
I know that. I remember coming home when we bought the rehab. Well, we bought the house and we remortgaged our own house to be able to fund that. And it was pretty scary, your family home and you're putting everything at risk, really.
Yes.
And I remember coming home and we used to have apple trees that come up along the path.
Yeah.
I remember standing there crying, thinking we're going to lose our home.
Yeah.
Dave's out there paying the wages through his wages, what he was earning, and I was cleaning people's toilets and privately counselling on the side just to make sure that the staff got paid.
Wow.
And which they knew nothing about.
No,
Nobody knew anything about that. I was just doing whatever it took so that the rehab could be successful.
Yeah.
And in a sense, it's exactly the same as the charity. So when the charity started, it was a wonky idea that I had one day, and we could give back to the community that I love. And the only place the money was coming from was mine and Dave's pocket.
Can I?
Go on.
I was going to say, can I offer my thoughts on that?
Yeah, of course.
Right. If you before you pulled the trigger, if someone told you, here's what's going to happen, you're going to be in a real hard spot. You're going to have to go back to hustling on the side with counselling. Dave's going to have to do this, and this. And you would have probably been like, I'm never doing it. But you took the leap of faith and did it.
Yeah.
The hardships you adjusted and pivoted, and you realize you're not made of glass. That's kind of what I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
And you get analysis paralysis but sometimes you forget forget how we can maneuver in times of strife. Sorry to butt in.
But also for me, when my childhood background was, I had nothing. I used to beg for food. So doing that is nothing compared to what it was. I've got, nobody ever gave us anything. Dave and I have always worked for everything. So, and when we first got together, we literally scraped our money together. So actually going out Dave would work at night and during the day, and I'd work at night and during the day, and we'd hop, things just came together. And I never had a decent car. I always drove whatever I could afford to drive at the time.
Yeah.
And it didn't make any difference to me.
I think as business owners, which the three of us are, I think we always do that extra bit.
Yeah.
If we're going to not be able to pay staff, or if we need to buy some equipment for our business, we will go that extra mile, whether that is delivering some curries, or whether it's, going and working for somebody else at the weekend, just to scrape by and get that money in to be able to go and grow your business and grow that dream.
Yeah.
And I think there are so many people out there that have got some wonderful ideas of a business they want to do, but unfortunately they just don't have I'm not sure what the right word is, but they're not ready or a bit able to take that risk.
They haven't got the belief.
Yeah, maybe.
Also, is it that they haven't got the belief, or is it that actually nobody has? If somebody came to me and asked for advice, and said, "What do you reckon, Ange?" And you and I have sat down and had these conversations many times, and said, Why don't you just, I'm happy, I've always been happy to share my knowledge. And I think that's where we all have a responsibility to do that. I think when you're successful, and I'm reasonably, I mean, I'm at the other age of my life where I've got a big birthday this year that I don't really want to talk about, but I'm at the age where I've got to think, oh, well, what am I going to do for the next 20 years before I snuff it, you know? And it's like, but I think I have a responsibility to make sure that if you want to set up that business, I'll help you do it. Whatever it takes, I'll help you do it. But it's just having that courage.
And also, right, is the fact, when I say belief, is self-belief, which I do believe you have, or you build it, and you can build it, and you do build it. Because where you've mentioned about, you essentially mentioned hustling to sort of make ends meet, what you're doing when that happens is you're becoming you're becoming the person who made that successful.
Yeah.
So you could be given a successful business or a sum of money, but if you lost it, you're back to
the same person you were before.
the real success is becoming the person who built that. Because if it all goes, you actually, guess what? And that's why after you start making leaps of faith, you then start making more. Because I bet people always say to you, and I've even said to you, oh, how did you have the ball to do X, Y, or Z? And I know, but it's because you've realized in the times where you've failed, you've just maneuvered, tried again, what have you. And it's because you've come that person that realizes, oh, if it does come down like a house of cards, I can go again.
Yeah. Just in a different way.
Because you've done it.
Different levels
yeah,
of
and you've learned from that.
It's like a muscle that I would say is fair to say.
Right. Okay. So we've been at it way over an hour.
Oh, wow.
And Mike normally asks this question, but I'm going to ask it because I know you less than Mike does. If you see what I'm saying.
Okay.
So if we asked you to come back, I'd like you to come back before a year, to be honest, because I've really enjoyed talking to you.
I appreciate that. Likewise.
If you had a goal that you'd like to say that you'd like to achieve, short term or long term, just preferably one, otherwise we'll be here for another hour.
I go around the houses, I've been told.
So no, you haven't. You've been brilliant. What would that goal be?
I have lots of goals, some less measurable than others. A big one would be, probably boring for you guys to hear, but I would be
Nothing's boring.
It's to do with my investments, and it would be to invest in a certain property type, like a HMO property within 12 months, a house of multiple occupation. For those who are not sure what that means. In my field full of abbreviations and what have you. You even called me out on it the other day.
Yeah, I don't do acronyms at all. I'm absolutely awful.
Stop talking to me in acronyms, mate. But yeah, no, for sure. It's those, because it's out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
It's does it feel exciting? Yes. Does it feel uncomfortable? Yes. And they're normally my two variables to know it's a goal. Excited about it. And does it feel uncomfortable? Yeah. So that's my 12-month.
Okay.
Sounds good.
We'll hopefully got you before that.
Yeah.
And thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Really
It's been an
appreciate
absolute
it.
pleasure.
Really
Absolute
good fun.
Pleasure.
Thank
Good
you. Press the button, Mike.